he rather prefers that, people are, like the people whom he loves, they don't have that awe and reverence in them. Because if they have this awe and reverence, then they will always be worshipping him. They will not, they will not do the things what he really likes and he wants to do with his pure devotees. Like his Gopa friends, they wrestle with him literally, and they always win also over him. And then the gopis, the elderly gopis, they like, to make Krishna dance, so they'll give him some, butter, and then they'll say, dance for us, dance for us. And Krishna loves to dance also, just to please the gopis. And here you can see that, he just likes to be scared of his mother, literally, when she's running after him with a stick. So if there is awe and reverence, obviously nobody will do such kind of things. So that's why, I've read somewhere that the Mahamaya is actually acting on us. We are in Mahamaya, which is covering us and keeping us away from Krishna. Similarly, there is another Maya, which is called as Yoga Maya. That is also as powerful as Mahamaya, which Krishna uses Yoga Maya to cover his pure devotees, so that they don't see him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is both of this Maya is the energy of the Lord, and he uses it, on his pure devotees. So Kunti Maharani is expressing her bewilderment of that, So I'll just read the verse. My dear Krishna, Yashoda took up a rope to bind you when you committed an offense, and your perturbed eyes overflooded with tears, which washed the mascara from your eyes. And you were afraid, though fear personified is afraid of you. This sight is bewildering to me. So text 32, we can go ahead. केचिद् आहुर् अजं जातं पुण्यश्लोकस्य कीर्तये यदो प्रियस्यान्वयवाये मलयस्येव chandanam. Some say that the unborn is born for the glorification of pious kings, and others say that he is born to please King Yadu, one of your dearest devotees. You appear in his family as sandalwood appears in the Malaya hills. So we very well know that Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that what is the purpose of Krishna coming into this material world? Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata apyuthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. So he comes for various reasons, but he comes, of course, to re-establish religion, religious principles, and to protect the pious people, and here it is said also to please King Yadu, who was one of his dearest devotees. So, obviously, we know that Krishna is not taking birth. Do you think that the sun is taking birth every time that it rises in the morning in the sun on the east, and is destroyed when it sets on the other side in the west? No, it's actually sun is becoming visible to us when it rises in the morning, and when it sets in the evening, it is actually going away from our vision, but otherwise, sun is always existing. Similarly, the Lord is always eternally existing, but he just appears or takes birth or comes into our experience. That's the difference. So you have to understand that just like Malaya hills are glorified because the sandalwood is found in those forests on the Malaya hills. So they have become famous because sandalwood is found only in the Malaya hills. So similarly, Lord Krishna also has chosen the Yadu dynasty. He has chosen King Yadu to come in his ancestral line, descendant, as his descendant in his family, to glorify his pure devotee, that is Yadu. So the next verse, she's giving, in the next few verses, she's giving various reasons for why the Lord appears in this material world. So first one we already understood that just like sandalwood appears in Malaya hills and glorifies Malaya hills, similarly Lord chooses his pure devotee to glorify his dynasty. He appears in that to glorify the pious kings. So the next reason, apare vasudevasya devakyam yachitobhyaga abhyagat ajastvam asya kshemaya vadhaya cha suradvisham. Others say that since both Vasudev and Devaki prayed for you, you have taken your birth as their son. Undoubtedly, you are unborn, yet you take your birth for their welfare and to kill those who are envious of the demigods. So the history we know, that the Lord actually chose Vasudeva and Devaki because in their previous birth as Sutapa and Trishni, they did such severe penance and austerities. It's not easy. It's not cheap to get Krishna as your child. I mean, you have to be really, really qualified. So, these two proved themselves by doing such severe austerities, and that's why Lord Krishna chose them, as their his parents, and he appeared. And we know that from Bhagavad Gita that he has very boldly declared in Bhagavad Gita that I have come mainly to protect my devotees. For me, my devotees are most important. So I am really, that's one of my main agendas to come into this material world, is to give protection to my pure devotees. So, from in this verse, Kunti Maharani is, highlighting this point. Then the next verse, she's talking about how, Brahmaji is, you know, is like is like his prayers, his intense prayers, because of which Lord Krishna appears just as an answer to his prayers. Similarly, like in case of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we know that Advaita Acharya prayed with such sincere compassion in his heart, and his you know his mood of begging, to reduce the uh, the irreligious activities that are happening and the negative things that are happening in the material world, the suffering that is happening, to out of their compassion they pray for the Lord, and the Lord reciprocates and he appears. So in this verse we come to know that uh, why Lord Krishna is took the birth in this material world, in the family of Vasudeva and Devaki. भारावतारनन्ये भुवो नावविवो दधौ सिद्धान्त्या भूरि भारेण जातो हि आत्मभुवर्तिथा. Others say that the world being overburdened like a boat at sea is much aggrieved, and that Brahma, who is your son, prayed for you, and so you have appeared to diminish the trouble, to reduce the trouble, to reduce all those people who are causing trouble in the material world. So the demons, they create such havoc in the world. When they become too powerful, they actually make the world imbalanced. Just like a boat, when it is overburdened, it loses balance, and it can tilt, and everybody, you've seen how boats tilt in the sea, and get like how Titanic, it just sunk. So the world also becomes like that, when the balance becomes out. So then Lord Brahma, uh, seeing the plight of Bhumi Devi, that the Bhumi Devi is become, she cannot tolerate anymore. So then he prays. So there is a whole system, so in the purport, Prabhupada was saying that just like when the earth becomes too imbalanced by all the sinful activities by the demons, then when the demigods cannot handle the situation and the demigods also lose all control, then all the demigods then approach Brahma, and they beg them, beg Brahma, please do something, please help us. And then Brahma, representing all the demigods, then he approaches Vishnu. He goes to beyond this material universe into the Shweta Dvipa, where the Lord is residing as Kshirodakshai Vishnu. He approaches and he says wonderful prayers. The prayers are there in the Shastras, in the Aspurusha Shakta prayers, or some prayers that he chants, to invoke the mercy of the Lord. And in reciprocation, then Lord really comes, So really Vishnu is he's the Lord who maintains. So he has to maintain the balance. So whenever there is no balance becomes out, so to maintain it, Lord Vishnu is the only one who can really help. So in the purport, Prabhupada is saying about Brahma, like the Supreme Lord does not have to undergo, like for us to produce any child, we have to go through that whole process. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead is, so, he does not need, he's so transcendental that the Brahma, who is the first created being, just manifests from the Lord's body, from the navel, without need for, without contact with Lakshmi ji. So, Brahmaji that's why known as Atma Bhu, because he has just self-manifested on the lotus flower coming from the navel of the Lord. So Kunti Maharani is telling, these profound things which I think only the Shastras have this knowledge, and she is saying all this to Krishna. So then the next reason that she says is Bhavesmin klishyamananam avidya kama karmabhi shravana smaranarhani karishyani tikechana. And yet others say that you appear to rejuvenate the devotional service of hearing, remembering, worshipping, and so on, in order that the conditioned souls suffering from material pangs might take advantage and gain liberation. Now, tell me, who is she referring to? Who is she referring to? If you go to see, this verse refers something, very clearly. Which personality is she referring to? Can anybody guess? Read the translation and tell me, whom is she referring to? Anybody? Come on, it's obvious.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?
Yes. Yes. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, right?
Yes,
To
yes. Hearing
rejuvenate the process of devotional service. He started the Sankirtan mission. So it's somehow I find that this verse is so amazing that, Kunti Maharani is really like predicting that you appear to rejuvenate the devotional service of hearing, remembering, worshipping. So in the purport, Prabhupada is saying that, that's the hidden agenda of the Lord, that there are external reasons and internal reasons, but mainly his only purpose is to really give pleasure to his devotees, and rejuvenate devotional service. When he comes into this material world, he does beautiful transcendental activities starting from his childhood, which are so enjoyable that everyone, devotees are just thrilled, just discussing and talking and, hearing about these pastimes among themselves. So this is what he really wants, that he wants to come and help all living entities who are suffering in this world, because that's his, causeless mercy. So anyone who says that, oh, I'm suffering so much in this material world. Why has God done this to me? Why has God done this to me? We are suffering so much here. It's like as if we have been abandoned here. But it's not true, you know. Krishna is so merciful that we have ourselves chosen to come here in this material world. We have done those kind of sinful activities which we are, you know, the reactions of which we are suffering right now. And here we have chosen to be separate from Krishna. So we came into this material world. But Krishna is not ever leaving us alone. He's not abandoning us. He's coming with us in our heart as the Paramatma always. And second thing is that he keeps coming to remind the living entities, those who have forgotten and who are suffering, unnecessarily are suffering, that the only way to realize, you know, or get free from this suffering is to just chant, just hear, and just, worship Krishna. Text 36. Shrinvanti gayanti grinanti abhikshanasha swaranti nandanti tavehitam jana ta eva pashyanti achirena tavakam bhava pravaha paramam padambujam. O Krishna, those who continuously hear, chant, and repeat your transcendental activities or take pleasure in others doing so certainly see your lotus feet, which alone can stop the repetition of birth and death. So Kunti Maharani is saying this with such conviction, you know, it's like, is that the only way, you know, that we can stop this repeated birth and death is by hearing, chanting. You know, the 9 processes of devotional service are, you know, given to us by our acharyas, you know. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. They are, each process is perfect. Each process by itself is perfect to, you know, help us to get closer to, you know, Lord Krishna. So in this verse, Kunti Maharani is saying that the only way that we can see Krishna's lotus feet, is when we engage in the 9 processes of devotional service. So our eyes, like Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sadaiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti. So if we want to see Lord's lotus feet, we have to anoint our eyes with the salve of unconditional love. And how will we get unconditional love? It's only if we engage in the 9 processes of devotional service. So otherwise, even if Lord may be present before our eyes, we will not be able to recognize. We will think that, oh, somebody has come just dressed up as Krishna. How will we know? You know, how can we, you know, really understand? So Krishna says that you need, you know, the qualification to see Krishna's lotus feet. And that comes only by Krishna's mercy. So there are so many transcendental activities of the Lord. So Bhagavad Gita is the knowledge that is given by Krishna. Bhagavatam is about Krishna. So the transcendental activities of the Lord given in Srimad Bhagavatam, they are so powerful, the process, just by discussing, just by hearing. That's why if you see in Bhagavatam, one story will be there about, okay, Gajendra Moksha. And by the end of, when you finish reading, you know, the end of it, they will always have some kind of a blessing that anyone who reads this story or hears this story in the morning, or in the afternoon, in the night, or whenever, will get this will get free from this. So it's not just namesake, it's not a sentiment, it's actually a fact. It's just that we are not able to understand how this transcendental activity, just by hearing it, we are going to get the benefit of it. You know, so So in the purport, Prabhupada is speaking about the hearing process. How powerful is the hearing process? I feel a major part I'm realizing is that most of our problem is because we are not hearing. So, we have to really make an effort to hear, because it's not, right now it's not music to our ears. It is something we have to do forcibly so many times, but that is the only way. So the next verse is Api adyanastvam sakarte hitat prabho jihaswasi surido nujivina yesham na chanyad bhavata padambujat parayanam. But I have a lecture here now, but it won't work. I'll just sit here. Just 1 minute.
Go
Everyone.
inside when I say go.
I'll just sit here. We are having some network problem. Just 1 minute. Hari bol. Yeah, sorry, the light is not good here. So oh my Lord, you have executed all duties yourself. Are you leaving us today? Though we are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us, now when all kings are at enmity with us. So, in this verse, she's talking about though we are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us. So, in the material world, if anybody says, I am completely dependent on you, this is considered as wants to show that, oh, we are completely dependent on somebody. Nobody likes to be like that, especially as women, we feel, oh, we are dependent on our husband financially. Oh, that's why, because in the material world, we feel that if we are dependent, then we will be exploited. But in
Mataji, your voice is not clear, Mataji.
Okay,
It says your bandwidth is low.
I said it says bandwidth is low. Okay.
And it's there's a lag when you're talking.
Okay. I'll just sit here. Where did she go? Okay, so now is it better?
Better, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji.
Better, Mataji.
Yeah, so dependence is not something very good in the material world. So dependence is considered as, oh, we'll be exploited. So, but in the spiritual sense, dependence is actually the highest form of surrender, where you completely depend on the mercy of the Lord. So Pandavas are like an epitome. They throughout their life, they were an example of this, where they were completely dependent on Krishna. They were dependent on Krishna for protection. So as we said, one of the qualities of surrender is Avashya Rakshibe Krishna. They have this complete confidence that Krishna will protect them. So the next verse is text 38. Kevayam nama rupabhyam yadubhi sah pandava bhavato darshanam yarhi rishikanam iveshita. As the name and fame of a particular body is finished with the disappearance of the living spirit, similarly, if you do not look upon us, all our fame and activities, along with the Pandavas and Yadus, will end at once. So very nice comparison she's giving here. It's the comparison is like, if the soul is not there, however great a person is, however beautiful a person is, however strong a person is, however famous he is, there is no value for the body once the soul leaves the body. So she's comparing that whatever we have achieved as the Pandavas, the kingdom that they achieved, the fame that they achieved, the name, whatever they achieved in their life, everything is all only because of Krishna, because he is like their heart and soul. She's actually showing so much love, to Krishna, that it's only because of Krishna, our connection to Krishna, is that our value or our fame is of any value. Similarly, in our life, we have to understand that we our value is only because we are connected to Krishna's devotees. Because Krishna's devotees are the most closest to Krishna. So because we are connected to Krishna, that's why we have any, whatever we achieve in our life, whatever great we are achieving, or whatever name, whatever fame, whatever we achieve, is only because we are connected to the devotees. So that is our only qualification. So here she's giving this spirit, that our this attitude, that everything that we had is only because of Krishna. Because without Krishna, we would be just like a dead body without the soul. This is very beautiful way she's saying that at once, as soon as the soul leaves, how the body just becomes lifeless and completely unattractive. She says that as soon as Krishna, you leave from here, there will be nothing of value. Whatever name, whatever big things we have achieved, all will be like a decorations on a dead body. This is what Bhagavatam says, that a dead body, however you decorate, it is still a dead body. So it is of no value. So next is text 39. Neyam shobhishyate tatra yate danim gadadhara tvatpaderankita bhati swalakshana vilakshitai. O Gadadhar, Krishna, our kingdom is now being marked by the impressions of your feet, and therefore it appears beautiful. But when you leave, it will no longer be so. So for so long, Krishna was in with them, roaming around with them, with the Pandavas, all around their kingdom. She's saying that our kingdom has also become beautiful just because you are here and your lotus footprints are there on this earth wherever you walk. So, her indication is that this Mother Earth is blessed by Krishna appearing in this material world. And the earth also reciprocates by becoming more beautiful, and becoming more reciprocates with the Lord, because when the Lord is present, even the nature reciprocates. So the next verse talks about how ime janapada swardha supakpaushadi viruddha vanadrinadya udanvanto ye edante tava vikshitai. All these cities and villages are flourishing in all respects because the herbs and grains are in abundance, the trees are full of fruits, the rivers are flowing, the hills are full of minerals, and the oceans are full of wealth. And this is all due to your glancing over them. So this is a very wonderful lesson for us, that actually the nature reciprocates to the degree that we are, appreciating, understanding the connection that Mother Nature has to the Supreme Lord. It is actually the energy of the Lord. So it is meant to be used in the service of the Lord. So here she's saying how because the Lord is present and he's glancing just in reciprocation wherever he walks, the nature just reciprocates by giving in abundance everything. So this is the natural gifts of nature. Whatever we receive from nature is nature is always so abundant, and in every way it is giving. But if we don't understand the value of it, as human beings, we try to forget Narayana and we want to just enjoy Lakshmi, the energy of the Lord. We don't want to worship the Lord. We just want to exploit the energy of the Lord. So this material nature is actually the Lord's energy. So what we are doing in today is that by our exploitative attempts, we are actually, we are exploiting Mother Nature. And that's why we can see the ill effects, the negative effects that we are seeing from Mother Nature in retaliation. So Kunti Maharani is here appreciating that when Krishna was there, because he was showing his loving glance, the whole Mother Nature was just providing with such abundance and such bounty. Text 41. Atha Vishvesha Vishwatman Vishwamurte Swakeshu me Sneha Pasham Imam Chindi Dridam Pandu Suvrishnishu. I really like this verse a lot, Pandusu Vrishnisu. She's saying that I am connected to two families, the Pandava families, that family, Kuru dynasty, and the Vrishnis. So she's begging the Lord, she's glorifying the Lord, oh Lord of the universe, Jagannatha, he's the soul of the universe, Vishwanath. And Vishwa Atma. O personality of the, please sever my tie of affection for my kinsmen, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis. So as a woman, she knew that we have this tendency to become very attached to our our parents' side. We are very attached to our mother's side. So she's saying, because of this attachment that I have, I don't want to really because of this attachment, I don't want to forget that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So women are said to be very sentimental and emotional, and because of this family attachments, mostly we ignore our spiritual, our personal spiritual growth. We are always ignoring our personal spiritual growth, and we are doing everything for the family, doing this, that, thinking that yes, this is my duties. But here, Kunti Maharani is begging the Lord, that please remove my attachment for my kinsmen and let me focus my heart and mind only in your devotional service, in connecting with the Lord. That's what she's really showing, this side, that as a woman, ultimately we have to understand that our only shelter is the Supreme Personality of God. As women, we think that, oh, if some problem comes, yeah, my mother's side will save me. Oh, my bank balance will protect me. I'd better, my insurance will protect me. So we think that, all these things are we want to depend on. But here, Kunti Maharani is showing by such a beautiful example that just let me cut off my attachment. Let me cut this illusion that they will help me, or they will save me, or they will protect me. The reality is that only the Supreme Personality of Godhead can protect us. No one else can protect us. So this shows complete dependence of Kunti Maharani only on Krishna. Text 42. Tvai me ananya vishaya matir madhupate sakrit ratim udvahatad adha gange vogam udanvati. This is also a very beautiful verse. O Lord of Madhu, as the Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you without being diverted to anyone else. Perfection. So the sentiment means this is like a emotion she's expressing, but this is not an ordinary sentimental expression of emotion. This is actually a spiritual emotion. She's expressing a spiritual emotion. Oh Lord of Madhu, you know that let my mind and my heart be constantly drawn only to you. Just let it be attracted only to you. This is such an amazing mood, to have. And we can see this in the Brajvasis, that they have this natural love for Krishna. It's like naturally their hearts are connected, are attracted to Krishna. So Krishna also really, he really appreciates the Brajvasis because of their natural love for Krishna. For us, because we are in this material situation, we are in an artificial condition. For us, it's not coming naturally. We have to force ourselves to do the processes, the sadhana, whatever has been told. We don't have this natural affection for Krishna. So Kunti Maharani is saying that let my affection be very, very natural, just like how the rivers flow naturally to the sea. Let my also affection be naturally towards Krishna. So this is such a beautiful prayer, and this is such a beautiful meditation for each one of us, that naturally, in our case, naturally we are attracted to the opposite things, which take us away from Krishna. That seems natural to us. Whereas attraction to Krishna is very, very artificial for us. This is because of our conditioned nature right now. Example is given in the Nectar of Instruction that, in the beginning, if you have jaundice, then even if you drink sugarcane juice, it will taste very, very bitter. That's because you have the jaundice, the disease. But as soon as the jaundice gets healed, then slowly you'll get back the taste of the sugarcane juice, and you'll find it again very sweet and naturally sweet. So this is a point that she's sharing here. So the last verse, she's in conclusion, she's glorifying Krishna in with all the choicest of words, in the most beautiful way. Shri Krishna Krishna Sakha Vrishni Rishabhavani Drig Rajanya Vamsha Dahanana Pavarga Virya Govinda Godvija Surarti Haravatara Yogeshwara Kilo Guru Bhagavan Namaste. O Krishna, O friend of Arjuna, O chief amongst the descendants of Vrishni, you are the destroyer of those political parties which are disturbing elements on this earth. Your prowess never deteriorates. You are the proprietor of the transcendental abode, and you descend to relieve the distresses of the cows, the brahmanas, and the devotees. You possess all mystic powers, and you are the preceptor of the entire universe. You are the Almighty God, and I offer you my respectful obeisances. So, after expressing all her emotions and her feelings and everything, and now she's like, this is like pure knowledge, pure in knowledge. She's totally in knowledge when she's really, glorifying Krishna in the most, you know, choicest of words. So, in the purport, Prabhupada has highlighted the point about how she's glorifying Krishna as the protector of the cows, the brahmanas, and the devotees. Go brahmane hitaya cha. So this is one of his main agendas to come into this material world, is to relieve the distresses of the cows, the brahmanas, and the devotees. And she is, also glorifying him as Yogeshwara, the master of mystic powers, and Akhila Guru, that is the universal Guru. So he is like the Adi Guru, because the knowledge that he has given to us in Bhagavad Gita is actually it's like the law book for us to follow. If we just follow the instructions of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, we will be able to lead our life, totally perfectly. So she really knows, the greatness of Krishna. She really has understood the real position of Krishna. That's why she is glorified since time immemorial. The great acharyas, whoever has come in the line of the Vaishnava tradition, or even any tradition, whoever have been practicing spiritualists in this path of devotion, they all have been studying Kunti Maharani's prayers. They all have been, glorifying Kunti Maharani, because just by these prayers, these few verses, she has, really revealed how, how just that by devotional service, if a person just practices devotional service, all knowledge, all gyan, and all vairagya automatically is revealed in their heart. It comes automatically. This is what Srimad Bhagavatam says. So Kunti Maharani is actually proving that even though she is a woman, she keeps saying that I'm just an ordinary woman, I'm an ordinary woman, but she's not an ordinary woman. So we have to understand, that uh, as women, if we think that we are limited, if we think that we are, just this body, and then we are this woman, then we will really be limiting ourselves. But if we understand that as women, more than that, we are actually spirit soul, and that we are connected to Krishna by the process of devotional service, by bhakti, then all gyan, everything that we need, all that we need, all the empowerment that we need will come from within, and that will come from by the grace of Krishna. So it doesn't matter whether we are women or we are, or men. The main qualification of Kunti Maharani was her love for Krishna, or her devotion for Krishna. That was her only qualification. And she's glorified only for that qualification, till today. So thank you very much for giving this great opportunity to discuss Kunti Maharani's prayers. Actually, literally, I felt that we can actually go into her mind, and understand how she is thinking also, which is so amazing, the way she is thinking, the amount of knowledge she has. It is very, very inspiring, and also like an eye-opening, it is very eye-opening for us. We don't have to, imitate her, but we should be aspiring to follow in the footsteps of Kunti Maharani. We cannot become to the level as what she is, but what we should at least think is that this is the path that she's showing us, and we have to just follow in that path, and try to just follow the instructions, whatever instructions she is giving us through these prayers. There are so many things that we can learn just by narrating these prayers and discussing and understanding. For me, what I'm taking away from this whole, each one of you can share now after this, but for me, what highlighted for me was her. Basically, I feel she's so one-pointedly focused. You know, her one-pointed focus on Krishna. For me, that was highlighted through everything that she was saying. For me, I saw that she has only one pointed focus on Krishna, which, you know, I'm thinking, you know, that's something which is inspiring to me, that at least I can try to imbibe that in my life. So maybe you all can share, whoever would like to share this, what is the one thing that you know, which touched you, or which you want to which was very prominent for you from her verse,